welcome everybody tonight, everybody here. Feel a little awkward with my back to you all, but thank you for coming. I'm Lily Knapp with Blue Ridge Public Radio, and this is
I'm Corey Valancourt, Politics Editor. See, I made the first mistake of the night. I'm Corey Valancourt, Politics Editor for the Smoky Mountain News.
Thank you so much to everyone for coming out for the Jackson County Commissioners debate. Corey is going to tell you a little bit about the rules for the evening.
So we're going to ask questions of all 5 candidates moving from our left to our right. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement. Each question will have a 2-minute answer. Rebuttals will come at moderator's discretion, and then we will have a 2-minute closing statement. The fancy lights that you see in front of you there will light up when your time begins. When the yellow light comes on, that means you have 30 seconds remaining for your answer. When the red light comes on, that means please finish your thought or sentence and move on. If anybody has any questions about the format at this point, now's a good time to ask, but I think it's fairly straightforward. We're going to go ahead and throw this over to Dr. Chris Cooper real quick, and then we're going to jump right in.
All right, how's that? All right, cool. All right. I'm Chris Cooper. I'm a political science professor here at Western, and welcome to the Jackson County Commission debate. I just want to say also we've got a bunch of students here who are recording this, going to put it on YouTube later. Smoky Mountain News and Blue Ridge Public Radio will also link to that if you want to find that. So if you have friends who couldn't be here today, we do encourage you to find that stream. We also have one candidate who could not be here today because of a family emergency, and that is Todd Bryson. And so when we're going to start in a minute with opening statements, but Mr. Bryson asked for me to read his opening statement, so I thought I would do that before we move on. So, in the voice of Mr. Bryson, my name is Todd Bryson, candidate for District 1 County Commissioner. If I'm elected County Commissioner, I would like to see all the communities in the county get what they deserve, whether it be infrastructure, improvement, entertainment facilities, or adequate public safety. I would like to collaborate with our next sheriff to have an adequate number of deputies on patrol to ensure our community's safety, as well as the safety of our law enforcement officers. I would work with other commissioners to support law enforcement financially, to reduce turnover, and ensure proper staffing levels. Our county has also experienced a rise in drug-related deaths. I plan to support our next sheriff with any efforts made to reduce the loss of lives due to the drugs that are filtering through our county. Surrounding counties have venues, fairgrounds, allowing their residents to come together and enjoy themselves with family-friendly activities. I would like to see fairgrounds or a similar venue in Jackson County. This will bring entertainment to our county as well as needed revenue. As a commissioner, I want to encourage family restaurants and new businesses to come to our county. We need to work with TWASA and other entities to expand our infrastructure. This will help recruit restaurants and businesses to Jackson County. Making these improvements will increase the county's revenue and allow our residents to eat and shop locally. It is time for Jackson County to catch up with neighboring counties. I appreciate your support. Todd Bryson.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. And we are going to start with opening statements from all the candidates. We do have the chairman's position as well as the other commissioners. We're going to start here with Mr. McMahon. 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Western Carolina University, Smoky Mountain News, and Blue Ridge Public Radio for hosting this event tonight. In the years after the Civil War, my great-grandfather, who was born and raised here in Jackson County, lived at Balsam and Okra Hill communities, raised 16 children in that north end of the county. No formal education, never learned to read or write until he was an adult. But in trying to help support his family, he walked across through Soapstone Gap down into what's known as Cullowhee and helped lay the very first bricks for this, what is now today Western Carolina University. So I always put that into perspective when I'm here on campus at Western Carolina University, and to think that he would have never dreamed that his great-grandson would be a graduate of this university with a degree in political science, state and local government focus, and also that I'm sitting on the stage here tonight as a 4-term chairman of the Jackson County Board of Commissioners, participating in this debate, having served our community. And just like my great-grandfather laid those foundational bricks here for this university, which has become one of the great institutions in our state, I have been able to be so fortunate to work with many of our boards, county commissioners, Democrat and Republican, over the last 20 years to lay the foundational blocks that we have used to build this county to where we're at today. They will uniquely place us in a position to not only be successful today, but be successful going forward into the future. And I hope that tonight we can talk about some of those great achievements that we as board members have been able to accomplish over the last 20 years. So I look forward to the debate tonight, and thank y'all for coming.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Mr. Dietz, you're next. 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to also thank Western Carolina University. Everything that I have, I owe to this university. More than anything else was the people that kind of took me under their wing back in the late 60s when I was a student here. Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Spilker, and Dr. Pilch, and all those fellas. I think they knew I was a kind of old country boy from down south, and they squared to help me out just a little bit. And I ended up doing well and had a good career. Yeah, when I started to run for county commissioner, it's for one reason to start with. I love these mountains, and there was somewhat of a problem about the Balsam Mountain Range, and maybe we was going to build on some of the slopes there and on the mountaintops. And I didn't want it to look like it does when you go over past Walmart in Waynesville and see all those houses built on the side of those mountains. And we've been able to preserve through several groups, preserve the Balsam Mountains there. That's real important. That's real important to me. This is a hard job being a commissioner. There's Tom sitting there. Once you get in there, you find out there's a lot more to it than you thought, Jack. And there's a lot of things that we do, and whether it's recreation or whether it's our sheriff's department, or whether it's fire departments, whether it's recreation, all these things that you get involved with, and you don't know it all about it when you get in there, or I didn't, but you start learning. And we got so many people that are working for the county, several hundred, and they do a fabulous job of keeping the county looking good and sharp and mowed and all of that, and I support them real heavy. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. I thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. Mrs. Woody, 2 minutes.
I see my role, I see my role as a county commissioner on the Jackson County Board of Commissioners as an opportunity to serve. I want the same things that most everybody here wants. An opportunity to live in a safe community, a place where our natural resources like our mountains and streams and rivers are protected, where our heritage is celebrated, and where our children are educated in excellent schools. My family started coming to Jackson County in 1958 when my father became a seasonal naturalist for the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And I've lived in Jackson County every summer growing up and began living here full-time in 1974 when I got my first teaching job at Almond School. I learned at an early age to value the beauty of God's creation and to practice good stewardship of our environment. My parents, along with the Day family, ran Holly Cove Campground on Piney Mountain Road from 1961 until 1982, and I worked there every summer. Carol worked there one summer as well, eventually paying for my college education, a Bachelor of Arts in Art and Education, and I graduated in 1974. My husband Phil and I have 4 grown children that were born and raised in Jackson County. Next month, we'll have been married 47 years. We bought our first home in 1980 in Cullowhee, and I've served this community in many ways, both professionally and as a volunteer. I'm committed to serving Jackson County and to listening to all our citizens. It's been a great honor to serve these past 4 years, and with your vote, I can continue to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. Mr. Letson.
Thank you, Western. Thank you, Blue Ridge Public Radio, and also Smoky Mountain Times. I don't have the long story of how my family came to this place. I know how I came here, and that was got tired of heat, just like everybody else. We moved up here in 2006, and my wife and I purchased the pharmacy from the Zachary family, and we've been there for 8 years. I've been full-time with Trillium Links up in Cashiers since 2006. We chose Jackson County because of its uniqueness, its beauty, its natural wonders. We are fortunate to live here, and I thank God every day that I'm here. Everyone has their agendas, and I think we can all agree that they are pretty close to the same. It's how you pursue that goal and how we want to make this place better. And while I know that we have a lot of progress that has been made, we still have a lot of progress that can be made. And it takes proactive leadership to do that. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I look forward to this wonderful debate, this forum. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Letson. Mr. Smith, 2 minutes for your opening statement.
I'm afraid I won't need 2 minutes, but I came here about 21 years ago, married a local girl. Part of my background, I served in the military for a little over 7 years, worked Operation Desert Storm and the Cold War back in the late 80s. Since coming here, we've raised 3 children. My wife's a local. I've been working mostly out of my home for the past 12 years, but I've worked on the Qualibounder at Cherokee for an electronics company down there. Wired most of the casino, good or bad. Yeah, again, I think we all want to do the same thing around here. We want to grow Jackson County and make it a great place for our children and our kids to grow up and maybe grow their families and have grandkids. And, you know, it's all a panacea if it all goes right. I haven't seen a lot of growth since I've been here. We've got 2 big retailers in 21 years since I've been here, Lowe's and Tractor Supply. And everything else is, you know, off and on. So that's all I have. Hope you vote for me.
Thank you. We're going to start with our first question from Mr. Goncourt.
We're going to start with Mr. McMahon on this one and move in the same order. Jackson County recently received its first payment in part of an opioid settlement that will result in $3 million for the county over a period of 18 years. Commissioners will get to decide how this money is spent within settlement guidelines. If you're elected to the county commission, what is your plan for using these funds?
Yes, and we actually had a meeting today, the very first work session where we have sat down and discussed at length how we might possibly spend the opioid settlement. $3.2 million sounds like a lot of money, but as it's spread out over the next 18 years and it's paid in installments, it really doesn't give us a lot of money in each fiscal year to be able to appropriate towards certain programs. The lawsuit that was settled and this settlement provided options for how to spend that money. There were 2 options, an option A and an option B. We chose to go with option A, which has some defined specific areas that you can spend that money, like prevention methods. It might be drug treatment. It might be a whole host of different options that the state and the federal government says these are what you can spend the money on. So we are working through a process right now. Today we met with a medical doctor, Dr. Lee, who came from Via Health, and he presented on the case, talked a little bit about opioid. We also met with Dr. Kopak, talked a little bit about how the jail diversion program. So we're trying to educate ourselves as a board to understand what is opioids, how do they work, what are case studies that have worked in other communities, and we're going to go through this process and then decide what's best for Jackson County. And it won't be just when we get to the final decision what's best for Jackson County, but what's best for our region. And as a member of the Via Regional Health Board, we will have conversations about how can we partner with our neighbors here in the West, because it might be that putting our monies together, we can work to try to enhance services regionally as opposed to just spending them in one community. But it is a long process, and it's just now starting how to spend those dollars.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Mr. Dietz, same question, 2 minutes, please.
Ask the question again, please.
Jackson County recently received its first payment in part of an opioid settlement that will result in $3 million for the county over a period of 18 years. Commissioners will get to decide how this money is spent within the settlement guidelines. If you are elected to, I'm sorry, can y'all hear me okay? If you are elected to the county commission, what is your plan for using these funds?
You know, that millions of dollars sounds like a lot of money. But when you start dividing it by 18, then it's not so much money. But it's something that we're looking forward to spending. We're looking forward to making some things better for the county. It's not hardly a week goes by we don't have someone die of overdose. And every one of you know somebody has. And as we discussed this and talked about it today, one of the things I wanted to know, are there any way we could use some of this money right now and do something right this minute? Because we have people right here, not maybe right here, but right here in this county tonight, could die because of that and because of drugs. But you can't jump a gun. We have to come up with a plan to spend this money. And we're going to have a plan, and the best plan we can get is what we'll have, and how to spend this money to save lives. And we got to have data that's evidence-dated data. We need to invent and look at prevention of this bad situation. And it's just not happening here. It's happening all over the county, and it's happening all over this state, and it's happening on that reservation and across the country. And so if there was an easy answer to some of this, somebody would have already found it. But it's not an easy answer. But we're going to try to look for the best answer. We're going to try to spend this money the best we can. And I think we will. But I'd give anything if we had 18 million right here tonight that we could start using in some way to save the life. If we just saved one life, it'd be worth all that money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. Mrs. Woody, same question, 2 minutes, please.
Well, as both of our former speakers here have said, it's a very multi-layered problem. But just because it's big and it affects people in so many different ways, we can't not address this problem. And we are addressing it as a Board of Commissioners. Because we've received this money, we want to be very targeted, and we want to be very much thoughtful in a program that will be sustainable over a number of years so that we can carry on and make sure that the results are effective. I'm old enough to know that there's been money thrown at programs many times, and then the program's over, and what do you see done? Not much. And we're not going to let that happen here in Jackson County. And that's why we have developed a process through our work sessions where we're going to listen to some experts. We had 2 come in today. And not just experts in the issue, but local people. Dr. Kopek lives here in Jackson County. He has studied this, the issue with opioids in prison systems for several years. And he has hard data. He's been working with Sheriff Hall over the past 3 years, I believe. And he's been collecting this data. And to me, that's so important because I go to statewide meetings and I'll hear things that are going on, and a lot of the data they have is from large population areas, which kind of makes sense because that's where a lot of the things are occurring. But we want to be sure that our plan is sustainable and that it's going to have positive results. So we're taking our time.
Mrs. Woody, thank you. Mr. Letson, same question, 2 minutes, please.
As a pharmacy owner, we are the very first line of defense for opioid crisis. When we purchased in 2015, year one, my wife went through extensive training and learned how to receive excess medicines. So seniors may have something that they're coming off of. Where do you put it? In Jackson County, the only place you could put it was in the sheriff's office in Sylvan. We do have another one that is open part-time in Cashers, but we thought it important enough to spend the money. It's $200 a month. It costs us around $5,000 for her training, and we are the first source that people come to. We're also the source of their cure, as random as that is. We see people struggle with the cost of just the medicines, the Suboxones that help pull them off. We've got to get treatment available to everyone in this county. We don't have a crisis center for substance abuse in this area. It's mainly nonprofit, and if we don't have something available to our citizens, it's going to kill more and more. And if we can't take $166,000 a year and devote that and earmark that for treatment, if it's 25 people, great. We need to focus in on that, and then we'll be in a better position to solve the opioid crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Letson. And finally, Mr. Smith, 2 minutes.
I'm going to go down a little different path here. I think the first line of defense on keeping the drugs out of Jackson County is law enforcement. We need to get the dealers and make sure that they know that they're not welcome here. And we do that if it's knocking on doors or, incarceration, whatever it is. And then we need to go and make sure that the judiciary is not slapping them on the wrist and letting them go. You can treat drug addicts all you want. As soon as they get out, if it's available, they're going to go right back to it. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Our next question will come from Blue Ridge Public Radio's Lily Knepp and be directed to Mr. Dietz.
Thanks so much. So during this campaign season, a number of the candidates have brought up the need for policies to attract new businesses, new restaurants, and new industries to Jackson County. As a commissioner, what policies would you focus on to develop Jackson County? Mr. Dietz, 2 minutes, goes to you first.
My wife stays on me about this all the time. She's always saying, why can't we have a nicer Ingles than what we have? She said, everybody's got a nicer Ingles than us. And so she goes to Waynesville. And so I hear this quite often. It's one thing to get businesses to come in, and it's another thing to get them in. A fellow the other day told me Silva was the most ignorant place he'd ever seen. He said, have you ever seen as many auto parts? Well, Silva don't have anything to do with how many auto parts come in. If 10 auto parts decide they can come in and make a living, well, they come in. So some of the things that we can do to do that is, first of all, if there's any property that's in a place that's would be available, then we need to do everything we can to help people purchase that, or if some company comes in. But I wish I had an answer to that, but it's a difficult problem. We had a plant down below on Scotts Creek Road below where I was raised, and the Mead Corporation went in there and or not the Mead Corporation, the paper mill down in Dixie Paper. They went in there and put a paper machine in there, and they hired about over 100 people, and we were all tickled to death about that. And it lasted for about 3 months. And they pulled it out and took it to Canada. So it's sort of difficult. But anytime that any business comes to us, any way we can help them, any way we can give them a tax break or whatever, We want them to come in, and we'll push to have that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. Ms. Woody, the same question.
I've often heard that same statement that Commissioner Dietz's wife has made. Just so that you know, we had reached out to Ingalls Corporation and wanted to meet with them, and they weren't interested in meeting with us. And the issue that they said there wasn't enough land that was flat enough for them to build a super Ingalls in Jackson County. Now, some people, I've shared that with some people, and they've said, well, I know of a piece of land, but what their requirements are, obviously they feel like they can't. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that Jackson County is the most mountainous county in the state of North Carolina. We don't have necessarily the highest peaks, but we have the highest average of peaks. And we have steep ridges, which is one of the reasons I love it so much. But it does create some issues. But we do have, I went and checked with our health department who does inspections for restaurants. I was surprised by this number, but there's no reason he wouldn't tell me the truth. In 2022, the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 22, we've had 20 new restaurants open in Jackson County. 20 new restaurants. Now, also, I have the sales tax right here. And in our sales tax revenue, which is a sign of business, isn't it? People pay taxes when they eat out, when they stay in a place, when they buy something at Walmart or any of our other stores. Our taxes, our sales taxes have gone up consistently in the last 2 years. In the fiscal year 2021, 21% above the year previous. In 2022, June 30th up to then, 12.74% over the previous year. It's consistent tax sales growth every month.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. Mr. Letson, the same question.
I think one of the key things we need to do is work through our Unified Development Ordinance. Recently on the planning board, we were able to pass small industry adjustments where livestock and chickens are able to be processed in this county. That's a major step. Creating an avenue where a company or a person can come in and functionally apply what is on the paper to reality. So looking at how we're going to attract businesses, that's how we first need to look. Also, we're going to be losing 37 businesses due to the 107 project. We need to be focusing on where those people are going as well. Otherwise, we're not really helping our community with expanding into another business. Another thing I would offer is maybe we should call Publix instead of Ingalls. They have a revolving model that adapts to different environments. You don't ever go into the same Publix. So instead of focusing all of our efforts on, and Ingalls is wonderful, we've got a wonderful Ingalls and Cashers. We're lucky. For Silva, Dillsboro, Cullowhee, we need to be looking at other options so that we can find a piece of property that fits that business, not the business, and then finding a piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I hear the same complaint from my wife. There's no place to shop, no place to eat. You know, if we go somewhere to eat, we go to Waynesville or Macon County, Asheville. Same for shopping. I mean, the Walmart in Waynesville is much better than the one here. And I know they're limited by land, the footprint they have now. But there's been, at times, other businesses talked about coming in here. Belk talked about coming in here, had a spot, and that was, you know, one thing led to another, and that fell through. We've got to find some way to keep those businesses that are looking at Jackson County, keep them interested and keep bringing them in. The average age of people in this county is gradually increasing. And the reason that is because the education that they're getting here at Western or Southwestern or wherever, there's no jobs around here for them to use that education, so they're moving away. And that's not a sustainable process. We need to get, you know, good jobs in here that those young people, you know, whether they're tech jobs or whatever, you know, working at McDonald's is, you know, not going to cut it. I'm not singling them out. There's others, but you know, we need to get some type of industry in here that's sustainable, and we'll keep those children here.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. McMahon, 2 minutes.
Well, I will say that I support our local businesses and I support our local restaurants. And while a lot of people like chain restaurants, I prefer some locals where you can have a variety of new things. Support your local new business, your local shops here in Silva. Yeah, you can order stuff all day off Amazon and other places if you want big box store goods. But there's unique items here locally that are handmade, that are made here locally, and it helps support local families. And so I try to do that. We'll have Shop Local Saturday coming up just right after Thanksgiving, so we want to make sure everybody supports our local community. And for most of the businesses on Highway 107, a lot of them did close, but the vast majority of them have relocated to other places around the Silva area. So one of the things that we can try to do is support our local businesses, support our local economic development here in Jackson County, and help try to retain businesses and retain those employees. If we want to talk about attracting new business, this is a capitalistic society. I can't go tell Cracker Barrel, or I can't tell Ingles, or I can't tell Belks or whoever, you got to be able to store here. Now, we can provide incentives, we can provide tax rebates, we can provide grants, we can help do things to make this a more attractive community, whether that be through making sure our educational system is as top-notch, where people want to come here because of our education, because of our roads, our water and sewer infrastructure, because we protected our mountains. We can do all those kind of periphery things to make this a more attractive community, and hopefully those businesses will locate here. But I think if we're going to talk about attracting new businesses, we need to be smart about what we're attracting, and that we're attracting small businesses, we're attracting those high-tech jobs, those that provide low impact to our infrastructure, but provide great salaries and benefits to the community as a whole. And I think those are great opportunities, especially with broadband capabilities.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Our third question of the evening will start with Mrs. Woody. Housing availability and affordability is a growing problem for the residents of Jackson County. Market data published by Canopy MLS from September 28th showed the average listing price for a home in Jackson County at $796,000. The average sale price not far off at $560,000. The town of Silva recently implemented an ordinance that restricts short-term rentals in the town limits, partly in an effort to address the housing crisis by encouraging property owners to make long-term residential rentals available. What will you do to help alleviate this problem for the residents of Jackson County?
That's an excellent question, and it's a vital concern for our community. I hear of people, I talk to them who have just received a new job here in Jackson County, and I'm so pleased that they've chosen to work here. And I said, well, where do you live? Well, they couldn't find a home here they could afford, and they have to live somewhere surrounding county. And that just breaks my heart. Those are the kind of young families that we want to come and stay in Jackson County. When Phil and I we never built. We bought a house in 1980 in Cullowhee. We bought a 4-bedroom house with an acre of land for $35,000. 1980. Now, it was old, it needed work, but we lived there 25 years and loved it. Young families now are struggling so hard. We have partnered with Mountain Projects to build several affordable homes, but that is just a start. It's just a drop in the bucket. What we're doing right now is working with some partners, Southwest Commission, Mountain Projects, and others, where we can offer some possibilities of workforce housing. This would be multifamily units, and we have this tool, a diagnostic tool for local officials, Jackson County right here, Housing Solutions. This is not an easy effort. I see several realtors in our midst here. I talked to one builder who told me that, he said, Miss Woody, I can make more money building one $600,000 home than building two $300,000 homes. So the issue, or $200,000 homes, I'm sorry, and the builders make their money on these higher income homes, and it's very difficult situation, but we are working hard to alleviate that.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. Mr. Letson, same question, 2 minutes, please.
Again, I think some of our development ordinances are hindering us more than they're helping us. There are some things written into the community or into the UDO that restrict certain slopes that should be relooked at. You know, that opens, when we narrow our scope so much that 1% and above cannot be built upon, we're already leaving our yes, sorry. You're already leaving a limited inventory. You're making it even more limited. So I would propose we look at that again. While I don't want it to, obviously, Mr. Dietz, look like Waynesville when we go over, there is some exceptions that we can make in terms of properties available in that small, narrow window. Also, I think we should perhaps even look at some of these larger builders instead of looking local. I know that there is a lot of things here that we want to promote local, but if someone can apply economies of scale, if someone can build 7 homes in the time frame that it takes a local builder to build 3, then maybe we should reach out to them and see if they're wanting to come to this community. This is direct. This is not a process where we wait on them to call us. We need to take this housing crisis and we need to focus in and really push ourselves towards this goal. 53% of the county right now is struggling to make rent or pay their mortgage. This is not a process that came overnight. When Brandy and I bought our business, the first thing we said was, we need a pharmacist. Could not find a house for a pharmacist. So what did we do? We looked at a condo. And we looked at a condo and it was $90,000. At the time we thought, let's hold off, it'll come down. Well, now that same condo is $449,000. These processes have got to be thought out. Agreed. But we've got to look at it 10, 12, 15 years down the road and be prepared to solve those problems now.
Thank you, Mr. Letson. Mr. Smith, 2 minutes, please.
I remember when I first came here 21 years ago, my wife, she already had a house here, and we needed a bigger house. We're a growing family. And so we remodeled that house, bought another one, remodeled that house and bought another one. We're on our 3rd one now. And if we hadn't done it that way, there's no way we could have afforded it even 20 years ago, the prices of houses here. And so we've gradually worked our way up. You know, I know there's been some movement. There was a couple of large properties, multi-tenant units that was income-based, and those filled up within a month of them being open. And we need more, you know, maybe not more opportunities like that, but that would certainly help. Had multiple couples come to me, mostly elderly, saying they can't afford their rent anymore. What am I going to do about it? Well, that's a tough decision. I mean, we can't hand money to people to get their houses, but we can certainly look at other builders, other solutions that may help them afford housing and not put them out on the street.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. McMahon, 2 minutes, please.
Yes, once again, just like said a few minutes ago about capitalism, this is a market-driven system. It is buyers and sellers, and they negotiate prices. And over the years, because of the beautiful community that we live in, we have seen the desire for a lot of folks to come here. and to join our community, and that has caused our prices to go up. That's just the way the system works. I think the other question is, what is affordable housing? If you make a couple $1 million a year, that might be affordable to you. But what about the middle class folks? Let's talk about the working class folks that we really the heart of this problem. Low income housing, yeah, we can get government grants and subsidies and tax incentives to help build apartment buildings for low income people. And right now, high income homes, the average price right now for second homes in our residential second home communities is averaging $750 a square foot construction. Now, I can't build a house for that. What about the people in the middle? And that's the problem that we got to work towards. We got to try to find a solution to help those people in the middle. And it is a huge problem, and there's not an easy answer, just like everything else we've talked about tonight. We've recently formed a affordable housing committee. I called for that committee to meet today to get an update from them. We're working with housing consortiums to talk about, evaluating properties here in Jackson County, to look at building some housing units. Some of that stuff that we're having to work through very carefully. I even had conversations with a developer in Cashers, and I said, look, you may need to set aside money. This might not be what people want to do, but you may have to set aside money from real estate transactions to go into a pot, and this is trying to think outside the box, to help buy property or provide opportunities for working people to reside. We've got to have a more inclusive community, and we're too divided as a county. And if we ever want to have, especially in the southern end of the county, people who want to work there and live there, then we're going to have to come up with some alternatives. And right now, it's way too out of price.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. And finally, Mr. Dietz, same question, 2 minutes.
Well, everything I was gonna say already been said. I was gonna say the same thing our chairman said. Now, what is affordable housing? And I've always wondered about that. And you see these people build these houses, and then they're $400,000 or $500,000, and they're affordable. And me and my wife built a house in 1974. We paid $25,000 to build that house, and it's 4-bedroom. It's a nice place. It really is. I didn't like the doors on the front, so I bought a door unit to put in there a few years later, and that one door unit cost me $2,500. Well, that's 10th what it cost to build a house. And that's one of the problems we're having with affordable housing. You go start to build a house, if any of you's bought any 2x4s lately or anything of that nature, it's just outrageous to try to build a house. And now on Buff Creek this week where I live, there's 10 trailers, and they've been there for years, single wide trailers. And all but 3 of them's been torn out in the last 2 weeks. Fell inside, he didn't want those there anymore. He's getting rid of them. That's 10 families had to move out. And then they have to find a place somewhere. So you try to solve a problem here, and you have another problem come up another place. We do have some people in this county that's, we got one fella, I don't know how many units he has in trailers and whatever. I guess he has 300 or 400. But he's providing housing for a lot of people, and that's something that's good. We talk about this steep slope thing, and I don't think that's really something to argue about anymore. But you know, we do want to. Any time we look at any kind of ordinance we have, if it needs to be, that thing's wrong. I know. Anytime we need to change our ordinance, or we should, and we look at stuff like that continually. And you know what? I can't stop for just a minute, Mr. Cooper. You know, we have a lot of pressure from Western Carolina University as far as housing. When you got 11,000 students here, and a lot of them's looking for somewhere to stay rather than a dorm, well then, that's one of the big pressures that's causes us to have some of the problems we have. So it's like the chairman says, it's a difficult problem. Maybe I won't talk so much on the next question.
I've got something I'd like to say. I don't know exactly what the process is. I haven't been on the board for as long as my counterpart, Mr. McMahon, down there. But I do know that a lot of our process is tied up in conversations, and conversations are great, but action is something that needs to be taken. We can start with a conversation, but we need to be moving forward in that conversation. It doesn't need to be like the animal shelter where we have 5 or 6 different plans that we pay for, and then we move the buck down the line and we wait for another year. This is happening now, and we're behind the 8 ball already, and if we don't start moving forward at this point, we're going to be even further behind. Thank you, guys.
I think we want to develop this topic just a little bit more, so I'm going to give some of the other folks who haven't spoken over their time or with additional time to rebut. And no, I think that's fabulous. I appreciate your initiative. Mr. McMahon, briefly, you touched on the possibility of asking or requiring developers to somewhat commit to a fund or to donate some money into some sort of affordable housing plan that would either purchase land or help fund units. Can you describe what you think that looks like?
Well, it's a concept, and it's in its early inception. It's something that I've had this conversation recently with developers in the Cashiers area who desperately wanted to try to find a way to have employees be able to reside in that community and be able to work at their establishments. And I said, well, you know, you're pricing yourself out of the ability to provide this housing, and the only way we could do that is to create some kind of unique partnership where you have a community that's willing to purchase property within its development and set that aside to sell at a reduced price to folks who might be their labor market, middle income housing. And that's the initiative that I put forward. And here again, it's just a concept, and it requires quite a bit of more fleshing out and research. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and this is not, like I've stated, and I mean, Mr. Letson tries to make this sound it's like real easy. This is a difficult problem, and it's been compounded over the years, and there is no magic bullet for this. We have to work together and try to figure out how to make this happen.
Mrs. Woody, you spoke mostly about nonprofits like Mountain Projects. In Haywood County especially, there's a lot of activity there. They run into cash flow considerations. They can only build a house or two every year. Recently, they've discussed establishing a revolving loan fund that would give them some working capital to construct more houses each year. Is that something that you would agree with, or do you have a different vision of how nonprofits might enter this picture?
That's an excellent question, and I have the privilege of serving as the board representative on Mountain Projects. And for those that don't know, it's our community action agency for Haywood and Jackson counties. So they get federal money and state money and then local money to support their efforts to serve our citizens. And I agree that we need to work on that. And that's one of the things that's come up about this revolving fund. And the issue is because there's a lot of strings tied to some of these funds, like the federal or state funds. You have to have so much infrastructure. It needs to be within walking distance of a grocery store to get some of the rebates. We don't have that in rural Jackson County. But we could use some of our own funds to start something like that without those restrictions that would be able to meet some of our people's needs. And one thing I do want to say about this, historically in Jackson County, many families, and my dear friend Carol Buchanan is here, they have 4 generations on their land. They built their house on their in-laws' land, and then they have 2 of their children who have built homes as well. That's not the case for people coming in here. And that's what we really need to do, like Commissioner McMahon is saying. We need to have affordable workforce housing so that new teachers, new nurses, new EMT workers, new business owners who are starting out can have a home and build some equity.
Mr. Smith, you've just heard several competing visions on how government and nonprofit may work in concert to provide affordable housing. Would you like to elaborate on your answers or discuss anything that the candidates have said?
Well, I would like to just touch on Mr. McMahon's statement about this being a capitalist society. And yes, it is. And in order to find a builder to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to toss in $10,000, $20,000 as a good neighbor, he's going to lose that as profit if he does that. So unless you levy some kind of rule on him that he has to, pay that fee or whatever, then you'll find very few that's going to voluntarily give up their profit to throw into a fund. Outside of that, again, affordable housing is a tough subject to approach, and the best solution, although it's not the most popular solution, again, is low-income housing, and that's a big issue in this area.
I want to thank the candidates for weighing in on this important topic. We could probably talk about it all night, but we do have other issues, so Lily Knepp is going to proceed with our next question.
Thank you, and we're going to start with Mr. Letson for this question. So the counties actually provide much of the budget for operations of elections in North Carolina. Do you trust the process and the outcomes of elections in our county, and are there any changes to funding that you would suggest as a county commissioner?
I actually do trust the process in Jackson County. We've got a wonderful board. I know a lot of the people that sit on it, and I've watched it firsthand very closely, and it's been nothing but stellar. I do wish we could get the results from cashers a little bit faster for everyone's sake, but that's a distance more than anything that the board is doing incorrectly. So I think we're in good shape with our board.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, same question, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Letson. I haven't found any issues with anybody I've talked to in the Board of Elections or anything. I think they're all good people. They're looking out for the candidates and the rule and make sure that everybody's following the same rules and stuff. Don't have an issue with it. He wants to see Cashier sooner. I want to see Koala sooner, even though that's not my district. But I think they were the last one in the primary.
Thank you. Mr. McMahon, some question?
I agree with everyone. Our election system is operated very efficiently. I have the utmost faith and confidence, and as I look out here in the audience, I see a couple of folks that have served and are currently serving on our Board of Elections. I've always had confidence in those folks. It's a bipartisan group. They work together for the good of making sure every vote counts. We've always worked in Jackson County to make sure that we've had the most up-to-date machines and technology available. We have great poll workers. It is a great spirit of cooperation, and I think we're very blessed in this county to have this election system that we have when you compare what takes place in other communities in this nation, and I have no concerns whatsoever.
Thank you. Mr. Dietz, 2 minutes.
I also have no concerns about the quality and the quality of our election board. Matter of fact, I feel so good about it. And right here's a fellow that I remember one night he lost by 18 votes or something like that. 68. Well, that's a lie. I didn't mean to tell a lie. He lost by a small margin, and his wife, big tears just come down her face, but nobody ever questioned it. It was just, well, because we feel that good about how everything's handled in this county, and I hope it always stays like that. It's a wonderful night when the count comes in, but if you lose, then you feel bad. If you win, you're elated. But I think everybody trusts what's going on. I trust it. We got good people working in there. We got people of both parties. And it's kind of amazes me to go down there on election night when everything's coming in, and all these folks from different parties that works for the board, they're there talking and going on and talking about what happened today and this and that. And there's a gal back there, and she's coming out and she said, I remember the other night, she said, I wish Cashers would come on in, I won't go home. But there's some people here that's on that board, and thank y'all, and I do trust it very, very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Mrs. Woody, 2 minutes.
I agree, and I just appreciate Mr. Letson affirming his faith in it, even when his loss was so narrow. And I feel like the transparency that our Board of Elections works very hard to ensure. We have bipartisan poll watchers, we have bipartisan counters, and of course the Board of Election itself is bipartisan. So I feel very good and confident in the work that they do.
Thank you. Mr. Letson, or you already went?
That's my turn. This is our final question of the night. It's going to be directed first to Mr. Smith. In this election, a new sheriff will also be chosen for Jackson County. How will you work with the new sheriff, regardless of party affiliation, on issues impacting the county?
Well, as you all know, it's the job of the commissioners to make sure that the sheriff's department is funded at a level that they can maintain law and order in the county and also take care of the jail and the prisoners and things like that. It doesn't matter who the sheriff is, they need the funds and support of the commissioners to do their job. If that's hiring another officer or two to patrol in different areas, bringing in canines or whatever we need to do to help with the drug problem. I'm fully behind that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. McMahon, 2 minutes.
I've always had a strong relationship with our law enforcement community and have supported them wholeheartedly. I would offer no difference, no matter whom the next sheriff is. I will work with the new sheriff to support his endeavors and his department's endeavors to make this county as safe as possible. We have funded every request within reason that the sheriff has brought before the board, and so I don't see that changing.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Mr. Dietz, same question, 2 minutes, please.
Well, I hope the next sheriff don't ask for as much as the one we have now, whoever he is. No, our sheriff right now, Sheriff Hall, he comes every year wanting this or that to make his department better. And we'll discuss and argue and talk about it, but I don't know if we've ever turned him down, because he's come with things that's very, very important, whether it's an extra person in cashiers or getting this, getting that. And it's very, very expensive. We spend about, 24% of our budget on the sheriff's department. And that comes up about, $6 million or something of that nature. And that's a lot of money. And we have, I think he's got about 48 or something deputies. But I'm going to, it don't matter who's the sheriff. He's not the sheriff of some party. He's the sheriff of Jackson County. Now we're going to support him. It don't matter who he is or who she is. Because that's what, Commissioner, that's what your duty is to do. And if that sheriff is not elected in 4 years, then the next that comes in will do just that with that person. This is the sheriff's department, and who's the sheriff of this county is a very important position. And we realize that, and he's our sheriff, and we will do everything we can to please him and provide for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. Mrs. Woody, same question, 2 minutes.
I am so pleased with the relationship that we have with our sheriff's department, and the safety of our community, our citizens, is of paramount importance to all of us. And our sheriff came to us, I guess, about 1.5 years ago, and they were having some real concerns with staffing, being able to keep the staff. Some of our officers were able to go to work here on WCU campus for a bigger salary, or go to Cherokee for a bigger salary. And we realized that we needed to value our employees in the sheriff's department and we voted to increase the salaries. And I'm happy to say right now, the last I asked, they're at 100% employment. So the staffing issues have been taken care of. And now that ebbs and flows as people's life situations happen. But though we have, as our other commissioners have said, funded all the requests because safety is so important. And the jobs that our sheriff's department does now are so much more complex. The training that they have to go to, the equipment that they use, all of that is so important. And I am very pleased to say that when many counties around us had some demonstrations during the Black Lives Matter time, some of those turned into violent situations. And here in Jackson County, our officers were proactive, respectful. We had peaceful protests, but we had no arrests. And I think that speaks so highly of how our sheriff's department works.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. If we could get you and Mr. Dietz to turn your microphones off, we will give Mr. Letson the opportunity to answer the final question of the evening. In this election, a new sheriff will be chosen for Jackson County. How will you work with the new sheriff?
I truly think that it's a hand-in-hand operation. 24.53% of our budget. It's the largest piece of the pie. We need to ensure that we're adequately staffing our as Gail alluded, we're at 100%, but we still don't have a second officer in Cashers Glenville. We still I've been driving down every weekend, and I've passed one deputy in the last 3 months on 107. And I do think that priorities within the sheriff's department will be dictated by the sheriff. It's not something we do, but I will offer every bit of support I can to whoever that candidate is. With that, it's so imperative that we really focus in on our opioid crisis, and I would enlist that sheriff candidate to really look at that, because we are truly losing people daily, and that's. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to have our closing statements. We're going to start with Mr. McMahon. You'll have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
I would like to thank all the candidates this evening for a great debate. And when you look at politics, one of the things that, especially nationally, the politicians will promise you the moon, but very rarely can they deliver. I haven't seen the moon move. But I don't make promises that I can't keep. But I'm going to make some promises tonight. I'm going to promise that I'm going to roll my sleeves up every day and go to work just as hard for the people of this county as I have for the last 20 years. I'm going to promise to help continue the great successes that we have made here, making our government more efficient, making our government more responsive, enhancing services, protecting our mountains, making our community safer, providing our children with a better tomorrow. I promise you that. I promise you I'm going to tell you the truth. I promise to represent all people, regardless of politics. I don't care what your politics is. I'm here to represent everyone. I promise to treat everyone with respect. And I've demonstrated that over the years as chairman. No matter who the person is that comes before our board, I treat everyone with dignity and respect, and everyone has the opportunity to speak. I promise to continue to be a leader that you can be proud of, that will represent our community well. And so I ask for your vote. Early voting starts on October 20th, Election Day, November the 8th, and I would appreciate your vote and support for another term.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Mr. Dietz, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
These two persons on either side of me, we've kind of ran as a team for the last at least 4 years. And I have such respect for both of them. The chairman does such a great job, and I'm just amazed. Every once in a while I get to be the chairman, he's gone. And then I realized what good a job he does, because he's not there to kind of cover for me. But he does such a great job. And Miss Woody, we used to talk about, maybe not a lot of people in the county knew her, and Brian and I would go out politicking, and everybody had seen Miss Woody. There's Miss Woody, there's Miss Woody. We finally realized Brian and I didn't know many people in the county. It was Miss Woody that knew everyone. But she goes everywhere, and I think that's just great. And I've so much enjoyed working with them. But if I had a goal for myself, we have so much dislike and hatred, seem like in this country, for each other. And a lot of it's over politics. And it's so bad. And I don't know where it starts, but it can start right here. You know what? We got some great people here, and people that does things for other folks every day. And we need to start realizing that and start appreciating each other. And if we have a problem, talk it out. But this stuff of just because you're a Democrat or Republican or whatever you are, it seems like we're in a fight or hate each other all the time. Just doesn't get it. I guess maybe when you get older, you get a little more passionate about some of that stuff. But we need to love each other more and see if we can get along better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. Ms. Woody?
One of the greatest honors of my life has been being elected by the citizens of Jackson County to serve on the Board of Commissioners. We live in the most beautiful area in the country, and yet our greatest asset is our people. I'm committed to continuing to serve all the residents of Jackson County as I've done for the past 4 years. We as a board have accomplished some great things, all while keeping our property taxes the second lowest of the 100 counties in North Carolina. But there is still more to do. And 2 things I commit to working on very hard. One is to expand broadband to every home in Jackson County. We are getting millions of dollars right now in state and federal funds to do that, and we will continue till every home is served. And another thing I want to do is to protect the beauty and health of our mountains and waterways by expanding and connecting our greenway trails and parks. And I would like to see us have parks at the river in Dillsboro and in Cullowhee. Parks where the community joins together in celebrating the beauty all around us. My years of service to this community and my experience in education, public health, and regional and statewide programs sets me apart from my opponent. I have developed connections with area and state elected officials. I am privileged to serve on the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Board of Directors and represent the 7 western counties. This allows me access to information and resources that I bring back to serve Jackson County. This election is extremely important for the future of Jackson County. I ask that you vote to re-elect our team and allow us to serve you in Jackson County for the next 4 years. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. Mr. Letson, your closing statement.
I'd like to thank Western and everyone involved. I'd like to thank everyone up here on the stage for a wonderful forum/debate. I'd also like to thank my wife and my daughter, who has had to go to numerous different events with me, oftentimes sitting through many boring conversations. And she does it with a smile, and I can't tell you how much that means. To have the support of your family and the sacrifices that they're making for all of us up here, it's just a blessing. We're all here to make this county better. And I think that we can take away information and open up conversations that maybe we weren't having before. I do feel that we can put the throttle down on this initiative for housing and for fentanyl and opioid crisis reduction, for really focusing in on saving some of these citizens of Jackson County. I feel like years of servitude on multiple different boards from Jackson County Planning Council, where I'm the chairman, to Economic Development and Business and Industry Board, Castro Small Area Planning Council, and Summit Board of Trustees, as well as their Finance Committee, have set me up for this opportunity. And being a small business owner, you deal with a lot of different demographics every day. I would say that 80% of our business is primary residents in Jackson County. About 20% is outside of the county. And when you start meeting locals and you see their stories and you hear their stories and you watch the struggles of the opioid epidemic, you really take it to heart and you want to save everyone. And sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. That's what makes it personal for me, is I can bring those people in, I can find them, we see them daily, and we can hopefully solve those problems. And I appreciate your vote on November 8th, early voting October 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Letson. Mr. Smith, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody here, thank Western, thank Blue Ridge and Smoky Mountain News for hosting this. It gives us all an opportunity to speak and everybody to listen and maybe help make their choices, maybe not. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is that we do need better broadband. I've worked from my home for the past 12 years on computers out on the internet. I manage about 10,000 computers, negotiating contracts and stuff. And without broadband, I would never be able to do that. And that's a tough problem that we need. There's areas that we just can't hit with DSL or fiber or anything else because of the mountainous topics. But I would like to see that. But anyway, I hope you guys will vote for me. We kind of ran as a team as well. Hate that Todd couldn't have been here, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
How about we get a nice round of applause for these candidates? This is not an easy thing to do if you've never done it before. We also want to recognize Smoky Mountain News staff writer Hannah McLeod for her work on the questions tonight. Don't forget, the last day to register to vote is Friday, October 14th. In-person voting begins Thursday, October 20th. Of course, the general election is Tuesday, November 8th. I'm Smoky Mountain News politics editor Corey Valancourt.
And I'm Lily Knapp. I'm the regional reporter for Blue Ridge Public Radio. Thank you so much to Western Carolina University as well for hosting us and setting everything up. I understand they will be putting this on YouTube after the debate, so anyone who missed it will be able to see. Thank you all.